like 7 or 8, like I don't mind taking them. Like that's the risk.
I like my SFB team too because I took Goff. Goff kept
I
falling
saw that
out,
you took. I saw that you took Goff.
and everybody's like, "Wow, 3 quarterbacks." I'm like, "Well, I got Rodgers, and who the hell knows with him?" I've
I
got
took 3 relatively early last year. I mean, Matt Ryan and Mac Jones were my 2, 3, and I took them like probably earlier than I should have.
yeah,
It's all right.
but it was a good time. It was fun.
Nice.
Got to chat with Scott for a little bit,
That's good.
and
How's his stress level?
wasn't sure he hides it very well.
Yeah, he does.
I saw Paul Charchian, but he was always surrounded by people, so I didn't even bother.
Popular Paul.
Got some swag from Underdog,
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I think they're gonna have swag at our Boston one on Saturday.
and then
So I'm looking forward to that.
got our live shirt, like our Minneapolis live shirt, which is really
Cool. That's cool.
All right, so enough of that. I know we've got a couple of viewers in there. Welcome in. This is the pre-show.
Yes, the pre-show. We're just vibing. A couple of dudes vibing.
Couple of dudes in a hot tub, just vibing.
It's gonna turn into a time machine. I'm going back to 1986. Bill Buckner. He's gonna get that ball. He's gonna step on first base.
I'm
The
going
Red
to
Sox will win the World Series.
2017, and Julian Edelman does not complete that catch.
You shut your mouth, Tyler. I'm going back to 07 and David Tyree. That's all I need to say about that.
Oh, the perfect season. Oh.
Yeah. Moments in time. I'd like to go back. Get me to 88, Marty. We're going. All right, give me like a few seconds and we'll jump in. Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. It is an exciting time in the fantasy football space. Not necessarily because of Dynasty. We're doing some more divisional previews this week. But as you know, if you're in the know, and hopefully you're in the contest, the Scott Fishbowl drafts have officially kicked off last weekend. And then this weekend, James was in Philly with our friend Shane, drafting his team, and had a long day. His son's been sick, so he's taken the week off from the podcast. But Tyler also this weekend did the Scott Fishbowl draft in Minnesota. Mine's coming up next weekend in Boston. I'm going to go there with my brother-in-law and draft for the second year in a row at Lansdowne. It's going to be a ton of fun. But Tyler, give us a synopsis of your 2023 Scott Fishbowl experience.
It was a great time. A lot of people showed up. Met a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. Met some new people from my area in Minnesota, so that was kind of fun. You know, Devi Kane. I don't know if you guys know him. Kane on Twitter. He got laser surgery, so
like
he has
Undertaker's
no
brother Kane.
Pretty much. So it's pretty much like when Kane took his mask off. Kane had no glasses. I had no idea who it was. He tapped me on, he started rubbing my shoulders, and I turned back, and he's like, it's me, Kane, because I had kind of like a "who are you" look, and he's like, it's me, Kane, and I looked at him. I said, well, I'm not gonna forget those soft hands, but that was, I brought my son. It was probably a couple years too early, but he enjoyed the time. He enjoyed spending time, and his funnest part was the drive up and drive back. Like, we got to bond a little bit, back and forth, talk. I explained to him a little bit about fantasy on the drive there and on the way back, because he's wondering, what am I doing? Why did I draft these players? And he had a bunch
he's like,
of questions.
rate your favorite Pokemon, Dad, and you're like, oh, God,
pretty much, and that is what he said, Doug. He asked me which one of those are the ones with the son that collects Pokemon cards, and I said he was not there. He is in Rhode Island. He will be here in 2 weeks, though.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks. We are less than 2 weeks away from me joining the Minnesota crew for a weekend. It's going to be an awesome time, and I am super looking forward to that. I'll talk shop with Pokemon with Max. Maybe I'll take some pictures of Lincoln's binder. Maybe I'll bring a trade binder. I'll be like the YouTubers.
The YouTubers.
I'll build a trade binder, like a little flip book, and be like, all right, Lincoln, I'm going to make some trades for you.
Man,
I'll give you a Dedenne EX for a, I don't know.
Those trade binder people, if you guys don't understand Pokemon cards, they go there with like extras and like, I'm going to screw some people over with these. I'm just going to bundle and get a good one.
Yeah. Speaking of bundling, we had a yard sale this weekend, cleared almost $500. So I was pretty happy. Got rid of a ton of stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, please, and thank you in advance. If you're not watching on YouTube, this is the official last podcast with the cast. No longer potting with the cast. It gets taken off on Tuesday. Thank the Lord. It's been like really humid and muggy here.
No more casting chair, Doug.
No, this whole thing is like it's like, like swamp ass, right? This is like swamp arm. It's disgusting. I can't anymore. I'm over it.
I think we all know the swamp arm feeling. Like if you wear long sleeves and you go for a run just to kind of sweat some weight off, like wrestlers would know this. Swamp arm is gross. It's almost like wet socks on a feet.
And it takes hours to like dry, and it's just, I can't wait for Tuesday to come when they just chop it off, and then I can just wear a brace when I need to, and I can
take the arm off.
Yeah, I'll be like, yeah. I can jump in the pool. Yeah. I can jump in the pool again. It's gonna be glorious. My summer pool Doug can officially start on Tuesday. Great. Oh, yes. Everyone loves Pool Doug. He's everybody's favorite. So this week, Tyler and I are going to break down the AFC North. It's going to be an exciting time because it's a very exciting division. Lots of fantasy goodness in the AFC North. Before we jump into news, we don't have a lot of news this week. It's been a relatively kind of quiet week here in the fantasy space, other than the Scott Fishbowl stuff. But I did want to give a shout out to Underdog. They've got all sorts of awesome contests going. The new one is the Chihuahua. It's a super flex tournament. $4 to enter, $250K in prizes. Best Ball Mania is back with Best Ball Mania 4. It's their largest contest ever. $3 million to first place. Not a total prize pool. $3 million to first place. You can play baseball on there right now. You can play golf. I think they have NASCAR. They're starting to roll out a lot more of their NFL contests for best ball for this year. So Underdog is the best way to play daily fantasy. And when you do that, go into the Play Store, go into iTunes. Those are two different things. And use code DHH, and they're going to deposit up to $100 right away. If you can only afford $25, that's cool. They'll match up to $25, so on and so forth. I'm rolling with yard sale money, so I can do like a full hundy, and they can double it. I'm rolling with house money with this yard sale. I sold like some old jerseys. I sold some McFarlane figures. Like I sold some old sports stuff. It was a good time. We had a good time at the yard sale. So I'm rolling with Underdog money, code DHH. And you can roll with that money too. All right. Let's get into some news. Tyler, this one made both of us very excited because we've been trying to add Javonte Williams in leagues. We did add Javonte Williams in a league with a projected late first next year. We acquired Javonte Williams because we like his talent. Now there's news/rumors that he is going to be ready for week 1, barring any setbacks in the preseason. Tyler, you saw this news in real time and made a move in the Scott Fishbowl, which is super savvy. Explain.
So our Scott Fishbowl league is on Sleeper, and when I'm on it, the alerts come a little quicker because like when you got the app running, it's going to roll in the alerts. So I saw the alert and it said Javonte Williams expected to be ready for week 1. And that was about 6-7 picks away. So I'm sitting there like, okay, if nobody else sees this, which I'm shocked nobody did, maybe they did, and they're like, I don't trust it because we saw J.K. Dobbins last year, and maybe they just kind of passed. But for me, it was an opportunity to get a possible starting running back, a probably second, third round pick last year in Scott Fishbowl, to get this guy in the 7th round, and it was an easy choice for me. And if this happens, you got a starter. If you were like Doug and I and a lot of other people actually that we knew that wanted Javonte Williams on their team, traded 24 first for him, you've got a starter, and that is always a good thing at this time of year because I know you're not submitting a lineup, but it's always nice to have that comfort and the depth going into the season.
Yeah, and my co-manager Damon and I acquired Javonte Williams in the trade that we traded Bijan Robinson. We had Bijan for a couple of hours, and then he was gone. We got Javonte Williams, we got Christian Kirk in the 106 when it ended up being JSN. So if Javonte Williams can go week 1, it increases his value. We added depth. Still love that trade. So I'm excited for Javonte, and if he's in fact ready for week 1. And speaking of running backs that are hopefully going to be ready for week 1, Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio reports the Jets have more interest than most realize in free agent Dalvin Cook, and that they are gaining momentum toward a signing. Now, supposedly Miami offered Cook a deal. It wasn't enough. He's kind of standing pat. There is also news that the Patriots have offered DeAndre Hopkins a formal deal as well. So we're waiting to see what that's all about.
And he doesn't like Mac Jones. Okay, Hopkins, get over it. You had crap in
Mac
Houston.
Jones is better than any quarterback he played with in Houston.
Pretty much, except
sorry,
Watson.
not sorry.
Except Watson,
obviously. Yeah.
But I mean, like Matt got taken super late in SFB, and I legit
Steal.
sat there thinking like, oh my god, like he's a forgotten man, and everybody forgets that he was the beloved rookie. His
4,000
rookie year
yards and almost 30, like 25 passing touchdowns in his
with an
rookie season.
offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So, per Mike Florio, the Jets' interest is all about Breece Hall's recovery from his torn ACL. Although Gangrene has publicly projected optimism on Hall's status, the truth is still early to know what Hall might be ready come week 1. But I think where there's smoke, there might be a little bit fire in what we're hearing from this running back kind of rumors. The Aaron Rodgers factor with the team needed to be all in order for him to potentially win in his first and potentially only season with the team. Dalvin Cook makes sense for them to ease in Breece Hall and have Dalvin Cook. I don't like it for fantasy for either player. I think it would suck. But I get it from a real life football standpoint. And it looks like Dalvin Cook he's figuring to sign near the beginning of training camp, or he may sign after training camp because he's a veteran. And just like Rob Gronkowski, like he's like, all right, well, I'll sign like when I need to report. I'm a running back. I know the schemes, like I'm good, which is completely possible. He is coming off a shoulder surgery too, which has been a bugaboo for most of his career, starting back in Florida
shoulder,
State.
So that doesn't matter.
That is true. It's just all like plastic and cartilage at this point.
Pretty much.
So, Tyler, any thoughts here on Dalvin Cook to the Jets other than, ugh?
I actually don't mind it. I mean, look at Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay. 2 running backs.
I don't want to look at Nathaniel Hackett
in Denver. 2 running backs. He knows how to use 2 running backs. And you know what? Dalvin Cook doesn't need the workhorse role. All he needs is like 10, 12 carries. Dalvin Cook still has breakaway speed and breakaway ability. He could be a pass catcher. Breece Hall, yeah, he loses some snaps, but he was doing that with Ty Johnson and Michael Carter. And, hey, guess what? Aaron Rodgers saw Dalvin Cook.
Don't forget about Bam Knight.
Bam Knight, and let's not forget about Izzy Abandakanda, who I still like as a stash, a very cheap player to acquire right now.
What's funny is that there was news a week or 2 ago that they believe Abakanda can be like the guy for until Breece Hall's ready. Now we're seeing this stuff on Dalvin Cook. Again, it's that type of season where don't believe everything that you read. Only start to believe it if there's like that steady drumbeat of like you're starting to hear the same thing over and over. That's when I start to be like, okay, now there's more smoke. Yeah. There might be some fire here. This whole thing with Dalvin Cook, I get like the reasoning behind it, but we're getting conflicting, like, Abandakanda. Like, I think Michael Carter can, between Abandakanda and Carter and Bam Knight, they could get by if they really needed to.
So my thing with Dalvin Cook is if you have Dalvin Cook, you're kind of stuck. And honestly, wherever Dalvin Cook goes, he's getting 10 to 15 touches a game. Like, he's not going to be that 20 to 25 guy anymore. And honestly, he might be lucky to get 15. He's going to be
he's still explosive
type player. Very, but I think whoever signs him is going to sign him for that explosiveness and wants to keep him on the field, full health and ready to go each game. So I don't think that, like, think Tevin Coleman back in the day when he was with Atlanta, like 10, 15 carries, and they're really hoping for that explosive play. And like, sadly enough, Dalvin Cook's prime days are probably over.
Yeah, no, you're probably right about that. That's how running backs do when they hit that 28-year-old kind of threshold, unfortunately, except for like Adrian Peterson, like the exception to the rule. There are a few Frank Gore. There are a few out there.
They just ran out of parts because it's an older model. So
that's right. They looked at all the scrap yards and like, we can't find it. We can't machine these anymore. Like, we don't have the technology. So in other news, just real quick, Saints tight end Foster Moreau announced that he is now in full remission from Hodgkin's lymphoma. He participated in minicamp. It's awesome news for the Saints tight end.
Peace.
His ailment was discovered with a routine physical following a visit with New Orleans in March, and then he's cleared that. He's signed with the team. They extended him a 3-year contract just 6 weeks after his diagnosis. He should have no issues starting the NFL season. I like him as a complement to Juwan Johnson. Moreau, I don't know if he's ever going to be the guy in an offense, but I've liked his skill set from a fantasy perspective. He's a depth piece. If something did happen to Juwan Johnson, he is going with Derek Carr. We've seen them like not really have a great connection, even when Darren Waller missed time. So it's a great story for Foster Moreau to be able to continue his career and clear that. From a fantasy standpoint, I know tight ends bloom late, but I don't know. I've always liked Foster Moreau. I've rostered him on a bunch of teams, so I'm rooting for him to be healthy and have a good season and career. But I think Juwan Johnson is the guy that you want to own when it comes to New Orleans tight ends. Right, Tyler?
I agree. He's a big He's a big upside guy, with LSU. He what did he wear, like 17 or something like that, which is
Yeah, he wore a weird
it was like
number.
a prestigious number where it goes out to the captain and somebody who is all about the team and stuff. But he's flashed. His rookie year, didn't he have like 4 touchdowns or something like that? And
Yeah,
it
and
went
he
up to
looked
7.
he definitely flashed. He was good.
Yeah, talent's there, but he's with Carr, so I don't want anything to do with that Saints offense.
I mean, I do, just not necessarily with
Olave
Foster.
today got taken before Garrett Wilson, which was very shocking.
There was someone in one of the chats was like, "Oh, I can't believe Olave went in the 5th round," and I'm like, "That's because he's a receiver, and receivers aren't really worth a ton in the Scott Fish Bowl. If you know, you know." Check it out; it's a thing. Anywho, let's get on to our sponsor, number 2 on the podcast. It is our longtime friends at Trophy Smack. Did they have their Scott Fish Bowl this weekend, or is it next weekend, Tyler?
I think it's next weekend.
I think it is too. I think it's when
Scott was here, and Scott's.
That's right. He's going to LA. He's trying to get to as many live drafts as he can, which is awesome because he's a family guy. He's got a lot going on. There's nothing. If anyone ever says a bad word about Scott Fish, then that just would boggle my mind because the dude, I've met him. He's just the nicest guy. What he does for the community and for Fantasy Cares is he deserves all the recognition and then some. And then the team that helps Scott, he's got guys in every city that are helping him out, helping him organize. It's an awesome team event. Scott is the mastermind, but everyone behind the podathon that was going on for 36 hours, shout out to Sal and those guys. Sal's still grinding the podathon, even though he's not super active in the fantasy space anymore. So we love to see the podathon. We've been on that in years past. Just all the stuff that goes along with it. Scott's going to be in LA. Trophy Smack offices. They've got a bowling lane. They've got everything you can imagine. It's like a man cave, but like they do business there. It's great. And you can upgrade your fantasy league today with TrophySmack.com. Use code DHHRing. Get a free $60 championship ring with the purchase of a trophy or a belt. Completely customizable, so you can add whatever you want. If you've got a fantasy baking league, you can have a Swedish chef belt like James has. If you do a fantasy darts league, that can be done. If you do fantasy pickleball, cool, that can be done. It doesn't even have to be fantasy. It could be a real league. The axe throwing place down the street from my house uses Trophy Smack for their belts, for their trophies, for their league seasons. It's awesome. But football, hockey, basketball, baseball, all that stuff is available, as well as the customization. It is the best in the business. I'm super happy for those guys and all their success. Maybe next year, Tyler, if we start buttering up now, we'll fly out to LA, do the SFB 14 draft. Of course, if we're invited, I don't want to assume.
That's true.
I don't want to assume. And congrats to all those new people this year in Scott Fish Bowl. I know it is very exciting for them to get their first one.
I do want to add, I actually had a great idea on trips. Get a belt for your family, and you give it to the child who did the best that week. So if you've got a
I like this idea.
If you got a bundle of kids, get a belt that has like best kid of the week, best kid of the week award, and then you can hand the belt out to the kids.
What if you had like magnetic pictures that you could put their face on the front and you just swap them out?
Yeah, or just have all 3 kids' face, or 4, 5, 6, how many ever kids you have.
If you're a Duggar, you need like a really big like spinner belt like they had back in the day.
100%.
Yeah.
But that was an idea I thought of when I was on vacation. Like, hey, whatever kid does the best, you give them the belt for a week.
And then if they do bad, you give them a different kind of belt. Wait, what?
Heck, even Mario Kart's big in our house right now. Make a belt for that. Mario Kart with the family. You get to strut around with that belt.
We used to have a cribbage trophy that we used to have a tournament every year, and we had
80.
a cribbage trophy. Yeah, I'm bringing my cribbage board to Minnesota. We're gonna play some crib.
Okay,
you're going down.
Crib in the crib.
Crib in the crib. All right, let's get on to these divisional previews of the AFC North. If you know what North means, you're in the know, and I appreciate you. Let's start with the division winners. It is the Cincinnati Bengals. Their depth chart is pretty nice in a lot of spots. We've got Joe Burrow, who I saw go as early as I think 104 in SFB, which is but that was a Cincinnati draft with John Bosch. So I'm not surprised Burrow went a little early there. Before Josh Allen, which seems fitting. So because of the little rivalry that's brewing between those two teams. You got Joe Burrow at quarterback. We all know Joe Mixon's still there. They drafted Chase Brown. They've got Travion Williams. They've got Chris Evans. So some interesting backup in case something does happen with Joe Mixon, although I think he's going to be on the team. They would have made a move by now if they were going to change
I mean, there's
anything.
still a lot of free agent players out there, but yeah, I agree.
For sure. Tight end, they're bringing in Irv Smith, who has got some sleeper value to him. And then wide receiver, that's where they're really stacked. They've still got Jamar Chase. They still got T. Higgins. They still have Tyler Boyd. They drafted a couple of very interesting receivers this year with Charlie Jones and Andre Hayosayas, or however you pronounce it. So, Tyler, what are we thinking with this Cincinnati offense? It's a lead at the top, but I think there's a couple players lurking here that could be fantasy relevant. Maybe not this year, but as early as next.
So Joe Burrow's king. We'll just get that out of the way. I mean, he's a top 4 dynasty quarterback, probably top 5, top 4. I would easily put him top 5 just because his growth each year is just going up and up. And I think the ceiling for him is, people are like, oh, he's got to be like Tom Brady. But he's doing that. Like, that's okay. He can throw 40 touchdowns a year. That's fine. Mm-hmm. And I think Joe Burrow can do that with the weapons, especially Jamar Chase, who is wide receiver 2 in most sides. I like him. He is definitely more of a big play guy. Jefferson, I think, is the safe one.
Guy.
Every game, you're like, okay, I'm getting 20 points from him no matter what. Jamar Chase can have that 40 blow-up game and it wins you the week. So can Jefferson.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jamar Chase is the number 1 scoring receiver this year.
I agree. And I mean, behind him, you got T. Higgins, who I do hope they sign. I would love T just to stay in Cincinnati, them to find a way to pay all these guys.
I feel like Burrow's going to structure his deal in a way that they can bring
Mahomes.
T back.
Yeah, like Mahomes did. When Tyreek had to stay for a little bit, and then they're like, okay, we can't keep him anymore. Tyreek has to go.
Yeah, we're at the tipping point.
Yep. So I like this team a lot for the future, and going to running back, they did it right. They didn't really reach at all. People are like, oh, Bijan could go there. Well, Bijan went a little early, but Chase Brown, like, we are both fans of Chase Brown. Mm-hmm. We both like his skill set, and he fits perfectly. Travion is a guy that we all liked as well. Drafted around the same round.
It's his 5th year.
It's his 5th year. He's a 5-star recruit out of Texas A&M.
Yep.
And he's a guy that can do it all, but like you said, you think we would see a little splash if he's going to be anything. Now, Chase Brown, I think, is that guy that can splash because of the combine. He's
got some juice.
He has a lot of juice. His tape was great. I love the way he hit the hole. Everything I liked about him. He could definitely change the pace for Joe Mixon in case of injury even, and in case, they do cut him, because there's Zeke out there. There's Kareem Hunt, who they saw twice a year at Cleveland.
Yeah.
And they kind of know what he brings, which I think is very similar to Joe Mixon, but they could save money. There's still a lot of moves to be made, but I do think Joe Mixon will be on the team. And, Joe Mixon right now is if you don't want him on your team next year, you have to bite the bullet, even if you're winning, and trade him. If you just want value from him, because this is the last point. After this year, Joe Mixon is in Dalvin Cook territory. That's where he's going to land. He might even be lower than Dalvin Cook territory just because, we all kind of saw how much of, 1 game, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, if Mixon's a starter week 1, you got to move him.
Mixon is legit the Mike Evans of running backs. So that's what I see out of him. Just big game, a couple big games, and the rest are just like, oh my God, 8 points. 9 points. So
that's fair.
I love this team. They revamped their offensive line again. 2nd year straight. They are doing work on that offensive line.
Yeah, they got Orlando Brown Jr.
Yep.
Which is a big ad for them.
They still have Jonah Williams, who won't move inside because he wants to get paid. They still have that trade piece. Or maybe they could even talk him into playing like, hey, play some right tackle, play some guard. Guards are still getting paid. So maybe show your role at guard. Be a really good guard, because offensive line, I think we're at the point where, left tackle gets paid, but it doesn't matter where you're playing on offensive line. You need everything. So I love this team. And where would you have T. Higgins? I know he's talked about in the top 12 of receivers, but would you have him just on the outside?
I'm a big fan of T. Higgins. I've rostered him in a lot of leagues over the years. I traded him to you in a deal not too long ago last year, which I now kind of regret, but whatever. I would have T. Higgins. I think even being the second guy to chase and he stays there long term, he's still in that wide receiver 1 area. I think if he were to go in free agency to a team where he was the alpha number 1 guy, I would move him up. I would probably have, because I love his talent. I think he can do it all. And I would probably move T into like the top 8 or 9. I'd move him up a few spots if he went somewhere with a good quarterback that he was going to get, a 25%, 20 to 25% target share. I'd move him up. But I'm comfortable with him in that wide receiver 1 conversation on your team. Maybe wide receiver 12 or 13, right in that ballpark. I'm okay with that. He's still young. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a nice track record. So, yeah, I would still have him there. Absolutely. Okay. What do you think about tight end with Irv Smith? I know he's a Minnesota kid.
I don't want to talk about him. That's pretty much where I'm at with him. I mean, it's all upside chance right now. If you're getting him for free, fine. Pick him up because it's worth a shot. I mean, all the hype is like, oh, he looks good. You know what? I've heard that up here for 4 years straight.
We've heard that every year about Irv Smith, and then he gets hurt.
I was a massive fan of him. He's 6'2", 230 pounds. He's not the normal size of a tight end.
He's Delaney Walker, but fragile.
Give me one of the rookie receivers, especially Chris Jones.
Charlie Jones?
Charlie Jones. There it is.
Yep.
C. Jones. Guy is lightning fast. Apparently, in rookie minicamp, he was really opening some eyes.
He's the Tyler Boyd replacement here, right? Because that's a way they're going to be able to save salary cap after the season is cut Tyler Boyd, slide Charlie Jones right in that slot role. Charlie Jones was an amazing value in rookie drafts, getting him in the 4th round, and even getting Andre because if T. Higgins goes somewhere, this kid is a freak athlete, 6'3". Like, he has the size of T. Higgins. He's a little raw, but his athleticism could set him apart on the outside. So he was a freebie in a lot of drafts. I got him as a UDFA. For me, anytime you can pair a receiver where you can see, like, okay, he could replace this receiver, and then if he does, he's paired with a top 5 dynasty quarterback. To get that guy
chase Mahomes receivers, so yeah, you're right on point.
To get that guy for free is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, agreed. Like, we all chase Guyton with Herbert. We chase everybody with Mahomes. It doesn't matter who they are, what names they are. We chase them. So why not chase
Rashee Rice, I'm not even a fan of it. He's a 2nd-round pick because he went with Mahomes.
Yeah.
Sky Moore, 1st-round pick because he went with Mahomes.
100%. You chase
109, Sky Moore. Yeah.
And if they hit, they hit. If they don't, like, especially with this guy,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's with Mahomes.
Oh man, let's not bring that up. We're not talking about him this year at all.
He's going to be fantasy relevant. He is such a late round smash for me.
You feel that person dragging that cold knife on your back? That's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's just scraping against her back because he's ready just to jab you.
I'm into it. I think the Bengals, it's a pretty obvious one at the top, but those 2 guys, Charlie Jones and Andre, I think are guys that are awesome taxi squad stashes. And if you were savvy enough to take them late in your rookie drafts, I think they could really start to show you rewards as early as next year.
One last thing with the Bengals before we move on. Brown and Jones, the running back and wide receiver, they are both older rookies. But if you look at how the Bengals are playing right now, they want to win a Super Bowl in this window.
They have a window, yeah.
And they don't care the age. Like, Charlie Jones is 24. I think he's going to be 25 by the time the season's going.
Hey, remember when Cooper Kupp was an old rookie? He's pretty good.
Yeah, I remember that. And now Cooper Kupp is, like, rotting in front of us.
He's like a sneaky 30-year-old. You're like, wait a minute, how'd that happen?
Cooper Kupp got taken very early in Scott Fishbowl, and I legit was like, oh my God, I forgot about Cooper Kupp.
He could have an absolute monster season, so I get it. I totally understand it. So, all right, that's going to wrap us up for the division champ Bengals. I want to talk next about the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens are putting themselves in position to really compete with the Bengals based on what they've done offensively here in the offseason. They, of course, re-signed their quarterback, Lamar Jackson, to a long-term deal. He's not going anywhere. They still have Tyler Huntley as a backup who I know he kind of flamed out a little bit last year, but he's shown some potential in the league. So if he did happen to get hurt again, Tyler Huntley he's proved capable
for Mark Andrews.
in spots. Yeah. We all know the running backs there. They've got J.K. Dobbins. My guy that I think no one is talking about is Gus Bus, who I think is a really good running back. I know a lot of people love Dobbins. You know, they drafted Keaton Mitchell or UDFA Keaton Mitchell, who a lot of people liked. He's a really speedy guy. Justice Hill, I believe, is still there. So they've got him. He's shown flashes. They've got talent in the backfield is what I'm saying. They supposedly want to throw the ball more under, not under Greg Moen, but under Todd Monken. the former Georgia OC, and they've stacked their pass catchers. We know they've got Mark Andrews. I really like Isaiah Likely, dynasty listeners. Of course, if you're listening to this, go get Isaiah Likely, 100%. I think they're going to use 2 tight ends a lot, so I like him. And then wide receiver, they revamped the wide receiver core, Tyler. They've got Rashad Bateman coming back.
And my first receiver taken in the Scott Fishbowl today, and Odell Beckham. And I took him, and I legit wanted, like, in my head, I'm like, okay, just think about 2015 Odell. Maybe it could happen.
This is like only 8 years ago.
In my head, I'm like, okay.
I was in my 30s then.
2015 Odell. Here we go. Draft him. And I hit it. And people weren't too happy because James Cook and Delvin Cook were taken back-to-back, and they all wanted me to take Brandon Cooks to kind of match. But I'm like,
is Jared Cook available?
I mean, somewhere.
What about Jared Cook?
Jared Cook.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Jared Cook.
Friend of the show, yeah. So we all know the Ravens drafted Zay Flowers in the first round, who I love here out of BC, right up north from me. And I think he's a great fit for their offense. So between signing OBJ, having Rashad Bateman come back, who I think is still super talented. I actually traded for him with you, Tyler, in a league.
It was sad. I kind of regret it, but I mean, it made sense for both. Yeah. It helped me get Josh Allen personally, because if I didn't have Mingo, I wouldn't have been able to get Josh Allen. So that's beside the point. Rashad Bateman, I love. Minnesota guy. Let's get the comeback going.
So there's going to be no DeMarcus Robinsons this year catching passes. It's not going to be any like insert old Sammy Watkins here. You know, they still have Devin Duvernay as their wide receiver 4. James Prochet is still there. So they've got depth now. I mean, obviously OBJ's injury history is concerning, but he did look good when he was with the Rams, and he tore his ACL again. So I think there's still some hope for Odell Beckham Jr. So the line is still pretty good for the Ravens. What's your outlook here for Baltimore? And give me a guy that you're trying to proactively acquire before the start of the season.
So Lamar buy windows definitely passed. I tried when this whole entire news about him sitting and going away. I tried so hard in a bunch of leagues. Didn't really make anything happen in any super flex leagues. I did get a trade done last season when all the contract talks were talking, when they were in the talk. I said talk way too much, but when they were going back and forth there, we'll change it up, last year in a single quarterback league, and it was actually a reasonable price. Now, the thing is if you're thinking you're getting Lamar of old, that ain't happening. Greg Roman's out the door. Greg Roman
be different.
Is a terrible OC. I saw him for years with Mike Vick and watched him just disintegrate his arm talent. The guy that could throw 80 yards,
an absolute dart,
standing still. Mike Vick, we're talking about, and they just wasted it. Oh, just run around, schoolyard football. That's
what I did in Madden. I dropped back like 75 yards.
2004 Madden, Mike Vick was a cheat code. And it was great being an Atlanta fan back then, because people are like, oh, you're just using Mike. No. I'm an Atlanta fan.
I still have a Michael Vick McFarland figure. You want it? I'll bring it with me.
Nice. I think I had one.
But
no. So he's gone. Lamar's going to throw more. Look at Todd Monken with Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is a walk-on guy, and he was up for Heisman contention 2 years straight with Georgia. Like, putting up amazing numbers.
They won 2 national titles in a row.
Amazing numbers with good talent. Like, they weren't supposed to put up those numbers. They were running offense, but Todd Monken's like, hey, no, we're going to throw all over the yard with this guy who's 5'11", 180 pounds. Now they got Lamar Jackson, who is a better thrower than people remember. And you got Mark Andrews, you got OBJ, you got Rashad Bateman, you got Zay Flowers, who it's like a perfect basketball team. You can put Odell and Bateman on the outside. Then you got Zay on the inside doing this Deebo Samuel type
separation
stuff.
Machine.
Like, this offense is going to look completely different. Even J.K. Dobbins might catch a few passes. Hey, that could happen.
Whoa.
I doubt
Running backs catching passes for the Ravens? What?
I doubt it.
What did he say?
I doubt it, but let's take a look at Georgia's running backs. Like, James Cook last year caught tons of passes, and the rookie this year that got drafted by the Seahawks, forgot his name. It's right there on the tip of my tongue. McIntosh.
One of my favorite apples.
Yes, Kenny McIntosh apple. He caught a ton of passes. That's what he's known for, because Todd Monken knows how to get players open into space and use them to their best ability. He's a very good OC, and they landed a gem here. I love this offense. If you have anybody and you got him for cheap, good on you. Oh, even Odell Beckham for a third. Heck, I think you struck gold here, because you've got a starter.
They're going to throw it to him. They paid him.
He's probably going to make 15, 18 mil this year.
Which is bonkers to me. I can't believe they
Nuts.
paid him that. But
I mean,
hey,
if he's healthy and he looks anything like he did in the Super Bowl run, good, because they landed a very good player. And yeah, this offense is just gonna roll. Mark Andrews, I think, will be back to where we thought he was 2 years ago when he was up there with Kelsey.
Tight end 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think Mark Andrews, he's gonna have a revamped season. Yeah, this is going to be a fun year for them. They still got that first round center Linderbaum from Iowa. Like, this offensive line is still very good too.
My favorite lip gloss, some Linderbaum. Ronnie Staley will hopefully be healthy this year.
Jeez, that guy walks on the field and gets hurt.
Yeah. A couple guys that I mentioned briefly earlier that I want to try to go out and acquire in trades. You can get Gus Edwards as a throw-in. I think Gus Edwards is a guy that, like, if him and Dobbins split the carries, Edwards can be the goal line guy because he's got the size. And I just think he's talented. I know he doesn't do anything super exciting, but I think he's a good grinder that's going to get you 4.5, 5 yards a carry. If they needed him to carry it 20 times, I think he could. And I'm okay with that as a depth piece on my dynasty roster. And then the other one is Isaiah Likely. When Mark Andrews wasn't on the field for the Ravens last year, Likely was getting 8 targets a game.
4 catches, 80 yards. And he had a big game end of the year, didn't he? Like 110 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He killed it in preseason. That's when everyone was like, whoa, Isaiah Likely. Whoa. I was able to pick him up in multiple leagues. I put in the league that we're in Bar Tab. I put in a bid for him on blind bid waivers and got him because he wasn't on my radar. And I'm a tight end guy. He was not on my radar coming out of the draft. And then preseason opened my eyes. I'm like, ooh, this kid can separate. He looks really good. So I think everyone is obviously going to be focused on Mark Andrews. Part of being really savvy and smart in the dynasty space is when everybody's looking at a player, and that's the obvious one, you look at the player behind him and say, hey, if Mark Andrews went down with an injury, could Isaiah Likely step in and handle that kind of Mark Andrews role? And I think the answer is yes. And you can get Isaiah Likely pretty cheaply when it comes to even a tight end premium league. He's probably like tight end in Dynasty. I would bet he's probably
late second.
Yeah, I bet he's probably tight end 28 to 30.
Yeah.
In startups.
We've seen the crazy tight end, where they're at in rankings and ADP. My guy would be Zay Flowers, just because he's forgotten. Like, the rookie drafts are over. Like, think about right now. People are looking at redraft, and they're looking at Bateman. They're looking at OBJ. Now, what you're forgetting about is Zay Flowers and how hyped everybody was. Mm-hmm. I think right now his price is low. I think right now you go out, say you're a contending team, and you know your pick's going to be 110 to 112 next year.
Which is around where he was taken in most drafts.
Yeah,
in Superflex formats.
You could probably offer a 24 first, which everybody's crazy about again. Oh, go figure. This time of year, people are crazy
maybe
about
get
those.
Zay Flowers plus, a little bit on top.
You might be able to. Like, maybe a Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
Maybe an Isaiah Likely.
It could be Likely. We don't know. But yes, I like Zay Flowers. I think people are forgetting the draft capital. The talent is there. A lot of people comped him to some other great separators at that position. So yeah, I like Zay Flowers quite a bit. So I agree with that one. Before we move on to everybody's favorite team in Pittsburgh, I'm not talking the Penguins. I'm not talking the Pirates. I'm talking Steelers. We want to talk about Manscaped. It is the season to be lean, to be trim, to wear, you're not bikini bottoms, because guys don't wear bikini bottoms.
I mean, they could.
I mean, here's the thing. I know it's called Manscaped. Doesn't mean just men can use it. Like, women can use it too. You want to take care of that bikini line? Boom. Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. It's got you. You've got the Weed Whacker for your nose and ears if you're an old like me. Skin safe technology. You're not going to nick yourself up. It is waterproof. So if you want to use it in the shower, your girl wants to use it in the shower, so be it. You can do that. And then not only do you want to be silky smooth, but you want to smell good. You want to feel good. Everything wants to be good. So you can do that with the crop preserver, the groin wash, your ball spray, all that good stuff. And when you do that, use code DHH for 20% off. An absolutely amazing product over at Manscaped. You're going to get a nice little bag to carry everything. You're going to get a set of underwear and a t-shirt. They're going to give you some clothes to go with it too. Yeah, of course, your charger, a docking station. It's absolutely awesome. So again, code DHH for 20% off at Manscaped today. Your balls will thank you. They thank me all the time. They say, good job, buddy. We have a cool relationship. Not going to lie. All right, let's get on to the Steelers. Lots of fantasy goodness on this team. It all starts at the quarterback position for me. We know Kenny Pickett's there. We know Mitchell Trubisky is his backup.
Hey, Doug, did you know Kenny Pickett has small hands?
Baby hands. At the running back position, Najee Harris, but I feel Jalen Warren is gaining some steam at the position. And then at wide receiver, very interesting wide receiver room now. We've got Mr. No Touchdown, Deontay Johnson, but tons of targets. There's definitely some positive regression going to hit there. One of the most, I don't want to call him enigmatic, but one of the most polarizing fantasy assets is George Pickens.
I love George Pickens.
And people love George Pickens, or people are like out on George Pickens.
100%. And a lot of like the reception perception followers, great product over there.
Doesn't score well on Pickens.
Does not score well on Pickens, but you know what they don't have is attitude meter, maybe like
an amazing catch meter.
That's my ball mentality meter. And I mean, there's a lot of things he needs to. We'll get to him. I'll let you go over it.
The Steelers acquired Allen Robinson from the Rams for a very minimal deal. The Rams actually paid them to take him pretty much. So we got former fantasy star Allen Robinson on the squad. We've got Calvin Austin III, who a lot of people like. They drafted last year but didn't see the field, who's been getting some positive reports from Najee Harris himself. And then at tight end, Pat Freiermuth, who both Tyler and I love. They drafted Darnell Washington late, which was very interesting. So there's a lot of fantasy goodness here on the Steelers. I want to know, Tyler, I think everything really stems from, can Pickett have positive growth from year 1 to year 2 to get him to a 25 touchdown season?
Yes. My vote is yes. And I know this won't go very far in stats or like, hey, this shows us. But for me, it is like, I'm going to start off with Kenny Pickett was one of the worst scoring fantasy quarterbacks last year. Like his
touchdown rate was abysmal.
It was awful.
Bad. Worst.
And for me, it was the mentality of the team. Going into the last game, it just seemed like the team was surrounding themselves around Kenny Pickett. They were pretty much backing him up. And at first, you're like, oh, is Kenny Pickett the guy? The Steelers can go out next year and draft a guy. They didn't draft anybody. They re-signed Trubisky. They trust him as a backup. But for me, it's what we see this offseason. Like, he's going out with the offensive line. He's spending time with the receivers. He's putting in work. And he just seems like a guy that's going to grow more. Like, he's got that Joe Burrow attitude. He just needs to get that Joe Burrow ability.
Not that Bo Callahan. Like, people are going to his birthday party.
Yes, 100%. Everybody's going to this guy's birthday. I mean, he's chugging beers with country singers. Yeah, he seems like a lot of fun. A Pittsburgh guy through and through. People love him there. They'll die for him there. And, for me, it's just, can the ability catch up to that? And I think we will see a jump. I'm not sure if it's going to be a crazy jump, but it's going to be a jump. He could be in that 25 touchdowns, 16 interception area. Maybe he drops the interceptions down a little bit. But for me, the big winner in this whole offseason is Najee Harris.
100%.
They worked on the offensive line. I took Najee in the 4th round, and people were shocked in the Scott Fishbowl. Like, wow, Najee? Really?
He's got the most touches in the NFL the last 2 years.
Like, for me, Najee is the big winner. He's busting his ass this offseason. All you see is videos of him doing Najee things. And this offensive line, they took somebody 14 overall, one of the best tackles. They signed the guard from Philadelphia, who is just a stud. So what's not to like about Najee and Pickett? Like, this helps Pickett. If Pickett has time, he's going to hit his guys.
He doesn't have to run for his life this year.
He's very accurate.
As much.
And that goes to, like, Pat. I'll go to Pat Freiermuth. As long as he doesn't have any more concussions, love him. He's great. And Washington, I think, is another forgotten man. We may talk about him a little bit after. But for me, it's about the receivers. What are these guys going to do with Allen Robinson? And George Pickens, I think, can learn a lot from Allen Robinson when it comes to the nuance of things. The route running and kind of just not using your natural ability all the time. Like, Allen Robinson was very similar to Pickens in his prime. A guy that was making crazy, amazing catches.
50-50 ball guy with Blake Bortles.
100%. But what we saw from Allen Robinson is this guy is a smooth route runner. Like, he learned the route tree very well. And I think that's big reason why they brought him in is like, hey, this guy, George Pickens, who's got all the talent in the world, could be T. Higgins level good. He just needs to tone it down a little bit with the route running. He's He's kind of a bully out there. Loves to block. I love everything about George Pickens. His talent is through the roof, but it's just getting the mental
George
part
Pickens,
there.
to me, like his ceiling would be if he would become something like a Des Bryant.
Oh,
Very
100%.
similar, very similar skill set. That he's got that dog in him, as they say. He loves the block. He can talk trash. He reminds me a lot about Des, like for sure.
The issue is like he could be Justin Blackmon, who loved all those things, but also loved donuts. Except for George Pickens, it's more he just is a little cocky.
Blackmon had some legal trouble too,
Yeah.
so there was that. But
so I love George Pickens, and if I'm actually gonna go buy somebody, it's him. And if I'm gonna do it, I'd give an early second easily. If I had 2 seconds, I might give both if it's a late second. For me, I'm actually trying to go out and get George Pickens just because his value is so low right now compared to what we saw. Like he was an 800-yard receiver as a rookie, and we didn't expect anything from this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like Pickens.
You can go out and chase Pickens. I think I'm going to go out and try to acquire Deontay Johnson, one of the best route runners in the league. Target percentage extraordinaire, 140 targets last year. Freaky that he didn't score a touchdown. We all know that. That is going to regress. He should finish between 6 and 8 touchdowns this year. Probably have a similar target share. I mean, I know they brought in Allen Robinson, but I can't see Allen Robinson siphoning off a ton of targets off of Deontay Johnson at this point. Deontay is the guy for them as a pass catcher. And I don't think that's going to change. He's got elite traits. A lot of people, when they drafted him, compared him to Antonio Brown. Now, he's no Antonio Brown, but he separates like AB. He can play downfield. Like, he's not just a slot guy. He plays on the outside. So Allen Robinson, bump him in big slot. Pickens and Johnson on the outside. You can move all three of those. Well, you probably can't move Pickens around much, but you can move Johnson and Robinson around. And you were right about Najee. I think Najee is the guy here who is poised to have a big season. Now, we saw both the Steelers' offense pick it up in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, and a big part of that was Najee. Najee had a really great close to the season. He was angry. He was putting up big games. I think there's going to be, once the further he was removed from that foot injury, we saw the Najee from his rookie season, where he was stiff-arming guys into the shadow realm. He was looking explosive again. So I think Najee is the big jump here. So I think, his startup value right now is cheap. Like, people are off of him, and they shouldn't be.
I like Washington a lot, too. He's kind of a forgotten guy. People think he's just going to stay in block, but all I've heard from reports is he's a red zone machine. It could be Freiermuth.
I mean, Freiermuth is awesome in the red zone, too. So maybe that means the 25 touchdowns for Pickett. Like, that's what he needs. I mean, and Allen Robinson, proven in the red zone.
They definitely have some towers in the red zone. But, I mean, if Washington ends up with, 400 yards, 8 touchdowns, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a little shocked, but I could see it just because he's such a big-bodied guy.
Huge.
Yeah, and I also like Jaylen Warren because another thing. If Najee goes down with an injury, who else is on their depth chart?
Yeah, 100%.
Anybody?
I mean, Najee's gotten hurt both years, so it can definitely happen.
Yeah, and Goodfella in the chat says would like to see Canada evolve as an OC. I think yes, 100%, because in the first 2/3 of the season for Pittsburgh, it was like watching Matt Patricia call offensive plays for New England.
So Pat McAfee said they have no hots, so no hot routes, and that is not
Red
known.
seven.
That's not known in the NFL. They didn't allow hot routes. It was just run this play. That's it. And it was terrible. Audible. Like, people knew exactly what was going to happen. So yeah, Canada needs a change. I mean, not the country, because your healthcare is great, but the Matt Canada needs a change, or just get out.
Yeah, it's a boot being able to be a good OC. 100%.
It's a boot, a good OC, or you get the boot.
It's a boot. Respect. All right, let's move on to our last team. Again, another loaded fantasy team here. It's the Cleveland Browns, everybody's favorite laughingstock. We all know their quarterback depth chart. Deshaun Watson's at the top. Came back last year after not playing a game for what seemed like forever.
Looked bad.
Struggled. There was some weather games in there. Just didn't look comfortable. With a full off season, do we get Houston Texans Deshaun Watson? He certainly has enough weapons around him now. There's no excuse. At wide receiver, you've got Amari Cooper, who's still a 1,000-yard receiver, still one of the best route runners in the league. They go and they acquire Elijah Moore from the New York Jets, who a lot of people really like. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tyler and I, one of our favorites, is on the roster as well. They still have David Bell, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year. Rip. At tight end, my guy. It's David Njoku season. My favorite late round tight end in redraft. Love Njoku. He should do awesome things this year. Harrison Bryant's still there. Hasn't panned out quite yet. And then at running back, it is Nick Chubb season. And Jerome Ford, yes, it is Nick Chubb season. And Jerome Ford backs him up. They don't have Dearness Johnson anymore. They don't have Kareem Hunt. I feel like I'm missing a wide receiver for the Browns.
They have Felton.
Demetric Felton.
And they also have Cedric Tillman.
I knew I forgot somebody. I love Cedric Tillman. Everyone's like, Jalen Hyatt. I'm like, go watch Cedric Tillman, my dude. Like, Tillman is the guy.
Tillman's good.
Tillman is very good. Tillman, I think we see one more year of Amari Cooper, and then you could, or Donovan Peoples-Jones, because I think they're both free agents after the year.
Peoples-Jones is probably out after this year.
Tillman could slide right into that role. I was smashing Tillman at the end of the 2nd, early 3rd in drafts. Easy selection for me. So what do we got on this Browns offense? This is the team that could be that turnaround team that puts it all together and has a top 5 offense in the league. I believe that.
So the funny thing is when you talk about Deshaun Watson playing in weather games, well, yeah, you're in Cleveland. You chose Cleveland over Atlanta. You could have played in a dome. You could have, but you didn't.
Well, when Cleveland gives you a fully guaranteed $200 million deal, like
the snow is a little bit easier.
I can deal with some snow. Yeah. I'll play in the eye of a hurricane for $250 million.
But with Watson and Dynasty, you are playing the game. You are playing. Did what I see last year actually going to stay, or we saw glimpses of old Deshaun Watson throughout the season. It does. I mean, he wasn't allowed in that building until he wasn't suspended anymore. So we got to remember. He missed
a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of time with his players. So, like guys like Amari Cooper, you could see the timing get better.
But Tyler, Baker Mayfield was signed off the street and came and won a game first week.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
He's so good. No, Deshaun Watson. If it were me, I'm still keeping him around 8, 9, 10 dynasty quarterback. He's still in the top 12 because
there's still
upside.
Meat on the bone for upside there.
100%. 100%. And with Cooper and with newly acquired Elijah Moore, who I think is also a hidden gem, we all forget. Like the hype was real on Elijah Moore.
That 5-week stretch in his rookie season,
he's wide receiver 4.
He was awesome,
amazing, and it didn't work out with the Jets. I mean, a lot of younger players don't work out with the Jets. That's why they're bringing in these old people. But it's just the talent's still there, and it's not because of attitude or anything. Like he was in a hard place. They weren't playing him, so of course he's going to show a little.
Braxton Berrios was getting snaps over Elijah Moore.
They're like, look how he's acting. It's like, yeah, like this is a top tier talent. That A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf even said is elite. Like DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, players that we love, are like, hey, this guy's legit. Like this guy's the truth. So keep your eye on him. And he's going for second rounder. Yeah, yes, please sign me up because Elijah Moore in the slot. Think Jarvis Landry with the Browns, but times 2. Like it's going to be crazy. He's going to get a lot of targets, and I think that hurts Njoku and actually more Harrison Bryant. I think he's just kind of a guy now. He's going to block.
100%.
But for me, he's going to run the middle. They're going to move him all over the place, and he's just going to eat. Like Amari Cooper, he's getting up there in age. We could see Elijah Moore really boost up an ADP in the top 24, probably even top 15 if he has a great season. Still super young. They went out and gave their only picks for him pretty much. They're like, hey, we will give our first pick to you because we want this guy. So, and then they used their 3rd rounder on Cedric Tillman. Like they are revamping this receiving core to get Watson going.
They're looking to 2024. They're trying to plan
100%.
ahead.
Yeah. And Peoples-Jones I still love. He's a deep threat. He wasn't really a deep threat last year. He was a 7 for 79 type guy. He was reliable. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to kind of stay there. He's I think a better version of KJ Osborne with the Vikings. So
I would agree with that for sure.
I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones. So this team is definitely on the up. Their line is still okay. I know they're kind of getting hit with some age, but they still got some really good tackles. And but yeah, I still like the line. Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is the best runner of the ball in the NFL. I know you're going to hear that drink You're going to hear that in a lot of pods. He is. It's just facts. Whenever
Yeah.
Nick Chubb touches the ball, he could go 80, but you know for sure he's getting 5. Like,
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah,
that's
you
my
know he's
thought.
at least getting 5, yeah. 100%.
That's my thought. And I love Nick Chubb, but it's Jerome Ford. Like, Jerome Ford is the guy that's forgotten.
I targeted him like 3 months ago in a trade that we made. I was like, I want Jerome Ford.
And I said no. I was like, no.
I eventually got him.
I know in UDPL, Memphis, friend of the podcast, he worked hard on getting Jerome Ford. Like, he's like, I want Jerome Ford, offering some thirds. And I'm like, no, like, my running back core is not great. But I know for a fact I'm going to be able to use him. Like, he is going to be a usable piece in the passing game. In the running game, he's going to get probably 8 carries.
He was on Alabama and then transferred to Cincinnati, right?
Transferred to Cincinnati. Very high recruit. Good
Played
runner.
In a pro offense.
Like, this
Final
is a guy
14.
that's ready to go. Like, this is a guy that's ready to go. And I think that's why you haven't seen him go for any veteran guys like Zeke or anybody, because they're comfortable with him as the backup. They know Chubb's time is coming. Like, he's going to be 20. He's 27, 28. His time's coming. He could Derrick Henry himself, where it's just like it's never going to end. Because it's Nick Chubb. He could be the new version of APV.
I was just going to say, he could be the new Adrian Peterson that plays well into his early 30s, like 32,
100%.
33. Yeah.
100%. And that could be because they didn't give him the crazy low, workload that we wanted them to give him at the beginning of his career, kind of like Derrick Henry. But Nick Chubb, I think Cleveland's like, okay, this is it. This is the year we give Nick Chubb 350 carries. Like, they are going to give him everything.
Give him that and a bunch of targets, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think targets are a dream. That is a dream and a hope, but I doubt. I think they're going to use Ford in that scat back type role, which
or more Felton, who's explosive.
Felton, who is a wide receiver, running back type guy
in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, 100%. But let's go to tight end. Talk about your guy Njoku. How do you feel about Njoku?
Excellent. I think Njoku has really matured in the last couple of years. He's now, to me, a complete tight end. He can be on the field for every snap. He's much better at blocking than he used to be. He has transformed himself into like the hyper freak athlete, just pass catcher, to now he can stay on the field, be that blocker that they need him to be. And he's still that freak athlete. He's great in the red zone. His yards per target are top 5 again in the tight end group. He can stretch the field. He can go over the middle of the field. He's going to win those matchups against linebackers and safeties the majority of the time. So David Njoku, if he gets a full healthy season, there is no reason why Njoku can't be a top 5 or 6 tight end.
So what comes to my mind thinking about Njoku is you nailed it right on the head. I see a more complete tight end now.
There's no reason to take him off the field.
There's one guy that had the same progression and finally exploded, and that's Eric Ebron. Explosive athlete, crazy like he could have had crazy production with Detroit, didn't, and then ended up with Pittsburgh, and he had like 9 touchdowns.
Colts.
It was with the Colts? I thought it was with Pittsburgh.
I think he had 12 touchdowns for the Colts. He was a machine for them.
They used him a lot.
He finished his career in Pittsburgh, and he wasn't.
And I think that could be a route with Njoku, a red zone guy.
They're committed to him financially.
Yep.
They want him to be there.
I mean, if you get 500 yards, that sucks. Like 500 to 700 yards, okay. But if you get like 8 to 12 touchdowns, you are pumped about that from the tight end.
I think Njoku, this year he could realistically finish between 800 and 1,000 yards.
If they realize that he's better than, like, honestly, he's probably a better receiver right now on the field as a weapon than Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's probably a better weapon than...
He's more of a mismatch for sure.
Yeah, and they need to use him more like that.
Give me 800 to 1,000 and 6 to 8 touchdowns.
The issues of Stefanski.
Yeah.
Up here in Minnesota, they did not like to fully utilize the tight end.
His target share last year was solid, though.
That's half the reason why Irv, his rookie year and the year after, wasn't great.
Yeah, that's true. But no, I love Njoku. I think he's still affordable in Dynasty because he's been around for a long time, but he's only 26 years old. He's not an old player, even though he's been in the league for 5 years.
At 12 years old, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's the opposite of Stetson Bennett.
He's the opposite of Hayden Hurst.
Oh, God. I totally forgot he was on the Panthers last week, by the way. I was like, I was like, oh yeah, Hayden
I
Hurst is
really
there.
like him as a deep sleeper. By the way,
That's-
you guys did not talk enough about the South. Bryce Young, he's gonna have a great season. I don't care what anybody thinks.
I said that. James
I
was the
know.
Bryce Young, anti-Bryce Young rookie season guy. I think Bryce Young is going to have a good season.
So also, James, we're coming after you if Bryce ends up good because you were walking all over this place like with the Zach Wilson talk, and you're like, just held high. Like we all did not like Zach Wilson a crazy amount. I tried to buy him when the hype was low.
You tried to come around on him, and that was like, you're like, I don't like him, and then I'm like, I kind of like him now, and I was like,
Yeah, that was a mistake. But yeah, like this Bryce Young stuff is going to come back and bite you in the ass because he's going to be so good.
yeah, and he can bite you in the ass because he's super short. He doesn't have to go very far.
Yeah, but his intangibles are nuts.
I think he's gonna be very good.
Like that's the thing. Like how often do you have quarterbacks come in and all anybody's raving about is like how much of a genius of football this guy is? Like Peyton Manning, Andrew
Ryan
Luck,
Fitzpatrick.
who's not as good of an arm talent as
No.
Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But still kept around the league for so many
He
years.
made up for it with his brains over his physical attributes.
Yeah, like Bryce Young is going to be
It's kind of like how I get
very,
along every day.
Very, very good. Oh, my
yes.
cat's meowing. All right. It's time then.
It's like, it's been an hour, bro. Let's wrap this up, says the cat. What's your cat's name?
Alley cat.
Cool. I wasn't expecting that. I was a
We
little
did-
taken aback.
We didn't name her.
Okay, fair.
It was
My
a
dog's
present.
name is Gucci, and I say we didn't name her because that is just tacky. Like
That is very. Who'd you get her from? A 15-year-old Instagram star?
she was a rescue. I don't know her whole backstory.
You don't? You should 23andMe her. The dog.
No, she's no.
So
I'm not, no.
you get
not.
the results back. So we got your results back, and they're a little weird.
Yeah, she's a pit bull that was found in a back alley. Oh, cool. Awesome. Thanks. All right, let's move on. Before we wrap up, I did want to give a shout out to Dynasty Nerds. Go check out Rich and Team at dynastynerds.com. Sign up for the Nerd Herd. Use code DHH to save yourself 15% off of any subscription. There's trade tools. There's an extra Nerd Herd episode, Prospect Film Room. So if you want to go back and look at like, oh, they guys are talking about Cedric Tillman really positively, you can go into the Prospect Film Room and watch Cedric Tillman. Prospect Scores, Dynasty GM, all sorts of awesome tools. They're working on an app for public
they have an
consumption. Oh, it is out. It's out?
I think it's out. You should go check.
Think or
because
you know? I don't want fake news on this podcast.
I had to update it, which I feel means the real version came out. And I'm telling you guys, if you don't have the app and you have Dynasty GM and you just go on the web browser, don't do it anymore. This app is awesome. Like I used it probably 6 times this week. I actually used it a little bit with Scott Fishbowl, looked at some rankings, and because I didn't bring anything. I just was winging the whole draft.
I'm just glad I have ADP data going into my live draft.
Yeah, so if honestly, the Dynasty Nerds app is a godsend. I love it. It helps with trades. I used a trade calculator a little bit this week.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go out and get it. Dynasty DHH for 15% off a sub.
Yep. And if you're online, you're looking at dynastynerds.com, just swing on over to Verdian Global. Check it out. If you're looking for a new t-shirt, a new hat, go on Verdian Global, search Dynasty Happy Hour. We've got all sorts of cool wares on there. So please and thank you in advance. And once again, if you want to check us out on YouTube, would love it if you like and subscribe, as well as iTunes and Google Play. If you can leave us a rating and review, tell us what we're doing great that you love. Tell us what you don't like. We love all the feedback, even the cheeky ones with the old guys trying to be cool. Whatever.
Or the Kendra Miller talk that we don't like him.
Yeah, didn't get the bit. It's fine. It's fine. We don't remember things like that though, Tyler. So it's cool.
We don't hold grudges like that.
No, we're not like that. Not at all. So, and if you're a new listener, thank you for joining us. We hope you like the content. Next week, are we all going to be back next week?
We're going to the north.
I know, but we're all 3 of us going to be back?
I think so. Let's just say yes.
The Triforce will be back. Was that a Transformer?
I think so.
That?
I tried.
That was terrible. It's come on now. Nailed it. All right, we're out of here. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Dynasty Happy Hour. We'll see you next week when we transform into the north.
New from Dynasty Happy Hour ASMR pod.
Check out my transform.